Okay, our next caller is Amy in Connecticut.
Good evening, Jordan.
Hi,
How
Amy.
are you? My question has to do with art education. I'm an art educator, and I've noticed a lot of the students that are in the school are very disengaged, unmotivated, don't want to be in school. And in the art room, it's a different story because there's a lot more creativity. How can we transform education? There's been a lot in the past from Sir Ken Robinson and some of your own comments that art is the bedrock of culture itself, that I believe was from your Beyond Order book. How can we transform education and address this critical problem of disengagement in education?
Well, my experience in school was, and this included university, was that it was often the case that the teachers who were attempting to impart information actually had no idea whatsoever why what they were teaching was good for anything. I especially remember that in mathematics because I would ask the educator why I needed to know this, and they didn't know. Well, my natural response to that was, well, if you don't know what it's good for, why should I be interested in it? Now, there's some arrogance in that, obviously, because you could say, well, when you're 12 or 13, you should listen to adults because they might know something more than you do, and sometimes that's true. But it's also incumbent on educators to set the motivational frame. And so many people who teach art think about it as decoration. They have no idea what they're doing and they can't tell the students why it's important. Well, it's the realm of the imagination. It's where creative ideas come from. It's where you develop skill and taste. It's how you make your environment beautiful. It's how you indicate to others that you're sophisticated. It's how you learn to see beauty in the world so that it can guide you upward. Why would you want to be guided upward? Well, you want to be guided downward and suffer madly and end up in something approximating hell? Or do you want to see beauty beckon to you and learn to establish a relationship with it? And you need to, like 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, new university students, they have a facade of cynicism, but it's pretty shallow. They don't know enough to really be cynical. It's a test in some ways. Why should I care about this? It takes effort. Well, that's a reasonable question. Like, if it takes effort, why shouldn't I just fritter away my time? Now, if you have a serious discussion with your students, at least some of them might listen. It's like, what are the things that make life worthwhile in the midst of suffering? Well, beauty is one of those, that's for sure. You want everything to be hideous and ugly and chaotic? How is that going to work out for you? So it's very important. Look, human beings are inclined to work toward a goal when they see value in the goal. That's how our nervous systems are set up. And so you have to frame the educational endeavor within the confines of a story that indicate that the goal is worth the effort. And you can't just take that for granted. And that means you have to know yourself. And most of the time, people who are educating have no idea. They have no idea what literature is for. They have no idea what poetry is for. They have no idea why it would be useful to memorize it. They don't know why you should write. They don't know why they teach mathematical equations, and they think art is for decoration. Well, you're not going to be able to motivate and teach people if that's how shallow your knowledge is. So why is art a burning concern? Well, that's the first discussion that you need to have with the kids. And that's true for every topic. It's like, look, kid, you need to know this because if you don't know it, you're going to suffer stupidly and end up in a bad place. And if you do know it, pathways will open up to you that you can hardly imagine. And so you're going to be like a clueless, malformed, cynical, shallow lump who can't communicate, knows nothing, or you're going to sharpen yourself the hell up and make your way through the world effectively. Right. If it's genuinely an educational issue, it's a intense spiritual and practical concern. And that has to be, God, I went to Harvard and I did a talk in front of the students, And this was at Harvard 10 years ago, probably. And I told them, that thousands of people had been working for like 600 years to find them and offer them a stellar opportunity, and that much was being invested in them and much was being demanded in them, and that they had an ethical responsibility to be appreciative of the investment that had been made in them, to sharpen themselves the hell up and to get out there in the world and do something useful. And like 24 of them came up to me afterward and said, I wish they would have told us that when we first came to university. It's like, well, that should have been the first day. This sort of thing happens at places like Hillsdale, because Larry Arnn, who runs Hillsdale, he does tell the students that. And they have a 1% dropout rate, as opposed to the 40% dropout rate that characterizes most institutions. You got to get the motivational frame right. And to do that, you have to know why are you pursuing this specialization, and why should people care? And if you don't know, your students aren't going to care.
Yeah. I think practically speaking too, we probably have to be pickier about teachers, because most teachers aren't good. So how are you going to go into a private school or a public school and get a good quality education if the teachers are no good?
Yeah, well,
and I don't even think that's a training problem.
It's also because as we pointed out earlier, is it education or is it child warehousing?
Yeah.
And the answer is mostly it's child warehousing. And then you might say, well, who are the students who are most likely to become teachers? And it's not like they're picking the cream of the crop. Why? Because they actually don't care.
You do. You come across some good teachers, and then you remember them
Yeah,
forever.
that's for sure.
But I can remember like 2. Yep. 2. Which is better than 0, I guess. None throughout my university days, which was pretty sad, but that's part of the reason we made Peterson Academy.
Where they're all great.
Yeah, but we went through, it's tricky to find good teachers. We went through thousands and thousands, seriously, of professors, and we're like, these are the good guys. And our math teacher, because in calculus, I had this problem. I was like, why do I need to know these equations?
Yeah.
And he's like, it doesn't matter, memorize them.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so you don't even know how they came up with these. If I knew how they came up with the equation and understood it to the basic level, I could remember it. Otherwise, I'm just memorizing it, and I'm going to forget it after the exam.
The people who teach that way are people who learned what they learned by memorizing it. They think that's how you learn things.
As soon as you remember something else, you forget the last thing.
Yeah.
Which is useless.
Yeah.
But our professor, the math guy, I'm so impressed with. He explains why. I was like, we need someone to explain why you need trigonometry. Because why do you need it?
I couldn't really do statistics till I understood why everything was structured in the manner that it was structured. I needed to know why.
And did you learn that on your own?
Oh yeah, completely.
Yeah. So for my statistics, this was year 1 university, which was a health nightmare, and I skipped everything. And on the final exam, I was cramming, and so I learned everything myself from the textbook. I got an A. I ended up with a D in the course, and I was like, should have done that at the beginning of the course instead of at the end of the course, because I aced the final. That was my statistics experience, but I had to Google everything. I used like Khan Academy and things to really learn. Yeah.
There's a great book called A History of Statistical Thought that unfortunately can't remember the name of the author, but that was extremely useful. But yeah, it's hard to find a good teacher, and a good teacher has to, a really great teacher,
now,
fair enough. A great teacher acts out a moral commitment to the topic. A huge part of what you're doing as a teacher isn't imparting information. Books do that more effectively. What you're doing as a teacher often is setting the motivational frame and dramatizing the process of being engaged with the material.
That's so true.
Yeah. That's why it's a lecture theater, right? You're acting out a commitment to the enterprise, and you're dramatizing that. You're saying, look, this grips me. This is important. It's vital. Here's why.
This will change your life.
This will change your life. Yeah. This will change your life. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Protect you from the pit and orient you upward.
Yeah.
And you better get that right, because the pit is deep. Right. So pay attention, or else. Right. Well, and then people think, oh, maybe there's something here.
Yeah. And that can be any topic if you get somebody passionate about it.
It is. Well, every phenomenon means It's from phanesthai. It means to shine forth. So every phenomenon is a worthy target of inquiry. And some will grip you and some won't. And what they're doing when they grip you is shining forth. That's the world manifesting itself in accordance with your interest. And so something will grip you, right? It'll shine forth. That's what happens when you find someone attractive, for example, or something strikes you as beautiful or interesting. So that's the shining forth. So what that shining forth is the deep reality underneath your surface perception, making itself known, glimmering. And then that's what the burning bush is in the Moses story. And then if you pay attention to that phenomenon and you investigate it deeply, you go down the rabbit hole to the bottom of all things and you see where everything's connected. That's where the animating spirit of the world resides. So that's what happens when Moses steps off the beaten path to investigate the burning bush, which is like the living phenomenon. He concentrates intensely until he gets to the bottom of something. And when he gets to the bottom of something, that transforms him into a leader. Now he can speak truth to power. Now he can free the slaves from their what? Complacency and irresponsibility. And now he can specify the promised land. That's what you're doing when you're gripped by a topic. And the grip is the revelation of a deeper reality beyond the surface appearance. And that's what you're trying to convey to your students. It's like most of what you see in the world is the facade of your assumption and ignorance. There's something deep there, and if you could only see it, and if you made contact with it, then it would change you and everything else. That's right. That's how the world is structured.